The air in the Kilo 7 mining shaft tasted of rust and recycled oxygen. Elias Thorne traced the jagged edge of a fractured asteroid fragment, his fingers brushing against the cold, dead rock. Another day, another hollow victory in the endless grind of the corporate-owned asteroid belt. The ore processors screamed in the distance, their mechanical wails a constant reminder of the debt that bound them all to the syndicate. Elias hadn't slept in 3 years. Not since the Stardust incident, when a rogue gas storm had swallowed the entire mining crew, his crew, without a trace. The official report blamed a malfunctioning life support system. Elias knew better. He'd seen the storm's eyes, swirling vortexes of violet and black, and they had recognized him. Now, the nightmares came even when he was awake. His supervisor, a woman named Kaylin with eyes as sharp as broken glass, slapped a data pad onto the console. Thorne, the core samples from Sector Gamma are unstable. Radiation levels spiking. Go. Her voice was devoid of warmth, a tool for delivering orders. Elias didn't argue. He strapped on his mag boots and stepped into the launch tube, the familiar lurch of acceleration pressing him into the seat. The asteroid loomed ahead, a pockmarked corpse in the void. As he drilled into its surface, the Geiger counter chirped frantically. Not radiation. Something else. A low hum that vibrated in his bones, a sound that didn't belong in the silent vacuum. The rock beneath his hands pulsed faintly, like a living thing. The hum grew louder, a physical pressure against Elias's skull. He abandoned the drill and backed away, his helmet light cutting a shaky beam through the dust. The asteroid's surface was fracturing, not from his work, but from within. Cracks spiderwebbed across the rock, glowing with a sickly, green luminescence. From the fissures, a thick, black smoke began to pour, coalescing in the zero-G. It wasn't smoke. It was a shape, shifting and writhing, a mass of impossible angles and hungry voids. Elias's breath hitched. The Stardust storm. It had followed him. The entity drifted closer, its form resolving into something vaguely humanoid, though its limbs were tendrils of solidified darkness, its face a vortex of swirling clouds. It didn't speak, but a voice echoed directly in his mind, a sound of tearing fabric and distant screams. Asterisk, you are awake. You are the key. Asterisk, Elias's hands trembled, but he didn't run. He couldn't. The storm's presence was terrifying, yes, but it was also familiar. A piece of his own broken psyche given form. The entity extended a tendril, not to harm, but to touch the side of his helmet. The world dissolved. Elias awoke not in his suit, but in a place that defied description. The ground beneath him was a shifting mosaic of fractured memories, his mother's face, the smell of rain on Earth, the final moments of the Stardust crew, all bleeding into one another. The sky was a bruised purple, streaked with lightning that didn't illuminate so much as it hurt, a psychic backlash that made his teeth ache. This was the nightmare dimension, a realm of pure psychic energy, and he was standing in its heart. Before him stretched a river of liquid darkness, its surface churning with faces trapped in silent screams. A figure emerged from the river, its form human but its eyes hollow pits. It wore the syndicate mining uniform of the Stardust, its name tag reading CHLOE. It opened its mouth, but no sound came out, only a wave of despair so potent it nearly buckled Elias's knees. He forced himself to look away, to focus on the landscape. In the distance, colossal shapes moved, mountains that breathed and stars that wept. They were the sentient gas giants, the beings the syndicate called storms, though they were nothing like the violent weather of Elias's home. These were ancient, slow-thinking minds, their consciousness spread across light years of swirling atmosphere. One of them turned its gaze toward him, and Elias felt the weight of 1 billion years of loneliness. The gas giant's name, as it entered his mind, was Vexthar. It communicated not in words, but in emotions, the deep, slow sadness of a being that had watched civilizations rise and fall, the quiet rage of its atmosphere being poisoned by syndicate mining operations. Vexthar showed him visions, its atmosphere, once a tapestry of shimmering colors, now stained with toxic runoff from the Kilo 7 refinery. The sentient storms, the Vexthar called them the Maw, were weather patterns given malevolent life, feeding on the entropy of dying stars. They were drawn to the nightmare dimension, a realm of raw psychic pain, and they were using it as a bridge to reach the physical realm. The Syndicate's reckless mining had weakened the dimensional barrier, and now the Maw were coming. Elias understood. His insomnia, his connection to the nightmare dimension, wasn't a curse. It was a key. He was the only one who could navigate the psychic currents, the only one who could see the path between the worlds. Vexthar offered him a bargain. Help it seal the breach, and in return, it would protect the asteroid colonies from the Syndicate's exploitation. Elias hesitated. The Syndicate had taken everything from him. Why should he help them? But then he remembered Chloe's face in the river, the faces of his crew. This wasn't about revenge. It was about balance. He nodded, and Vexthar's presence receded, leaving him alone with the howling wind of the nightmare dimension. Returning to Kilo, 7 felt like stepping into a lie. The station hummed with the same artificial life, the same empty routines. Elias found Kaylin in the command center, her fingers flying across the console as she monitored the refinery's output. Thorn, you're late. The Maw's energy signature just spiked in Sector Gamma. They're through. Her voice was tight, betraying a flicker of fear. For the first time, Elias saw not a corporate enforcer, but a woman trapped in a system she despised. He didn't tell her about Vexthar, about the nightmare dimension. Instead, he said, I know how to stop them, but I need your help. Kaylin stared at him, her skepticism warring with desperation. You? A miner with a record of instability. I'm the only one who can see them, Elias said, his voice low and steady. I can lead them back. For a moment, she hesitated. Then, she slammed her fist on the console. Fine, but if this is a trick, I'll space you myself. She granted him access to the central reactor, a massive, pulsing heart of energy that powered the entire station. As Elias worked, rerouting the reactor's output into a harmonic frequency, he felt the Maw's presence growing stronger, a physical pressure against the station's hull. The lights flickered, and the air grew thick with the smell of ozone and decay. The time for bargains was over. Elias stood at the reactor's core, the harmonic emitter humming in his hands. The Maw had breached the station, their forms coalescing in the corridors, tendrils of shadow lashing out at terrified miners. Kaylin's voice crackled in his ear, her breath ragged. They're everywhere, Thorn. The shield's failing. Elias closed his eyes, reaching out with his mind, not to the Maw, but to the nightmare dimension. He saw the river of darkness, the faces of the lost, and Vexthar's slow, steady presence. He poured his own grief, his own insomnia, his own rage into the emitter, channeling it into a single, piercing note. The sound was not loud, but it was wrong, a frequency that unraveled reality. The Maw shrieked, a sound that tore at the fabric of space itself. Their forms began to dissolve, not into smoke, but into memories, happy ones, sad ones, all the things that made life worth living. The nightmare dimension recoiled, pulling the Maw back through the breach. As the last tendril vanished, the station fell silent. The lights steadied, the air cleared. Kaylin found Elias slumped against the reactor, his face pale, but his eyes clear. For the first time in years, he felt a flicker of peace. The Syndicate would still be there, the debt still owed, but something had changed. He had navigated the storm, not as a victim, but as a navigator. And in the quiet hum of the station, Elias Thorn finally allowed himself to dream.